Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today is the day we are going to talk about the bullet journal method. I am so excited for this video because I've had the best experience reading this book, and if you guys have been on my Instagram in the past couple of weeks, you guys will have seen some of that. I actually do have a story in my highlights, so like if you go on my profile you can check in my highlights about my random, just sort of spontaneous, not even a rant, just my random thoughts about the book when I first started reading it. And so now that I've finished reading the book, I wanted to come on here and give you guys a little bit of a review. So rather than just kind of going through the book itself, because I think that you guys are all going to probably want to read it if you are into bullet journaling at all, I thought I would go through and tell you the 5 things that I have kind of taken away from the book and the 5 things I'm going to change in my system because of this book. So first up, the 5 things that I'm going to take away from this book. So the first thing that I took away from this book, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the content in particular, it was just something that really struck me, is that Ryder is funny. Like, that kind of dry, sort of, not even necessarily sarcastic, but just observational humor about life that it just really resonates with me. So it might not be your type of humor, but I have to say that having those moments of humor in this book just like, it made me laugh out loud, and it also made it resonate with me even more because it just felt like I was chatting with a friend who had some really funny insights on life. And you'll have to read it to see what I mean. And again, if it's not your type of humor, I apologize, but for those of you who like that kind of humor, you should know going in, Ryder is funny. There are a couple of sentences in here. There's actually probably, I don't know, maybe a quarter or a third of what I actually underlined or starred is just phrases that he has in here that were just like so perfect and pithy and funny that I just wanted to remember them. So be prepared. Number 2, even though I was prepared to be inspired by this book, I thought, since I am an experienced bullet journal, I've been doing it for over 2.5 years now, that it would be a lot of like head nodding, like yes, yes, I get that, like that makes a lot of sense. And maybe not so much on the inspiration side, and I was totally wrong. There was definitely a lot of head nodding. There were a lot of things that I was reading that I was like, yes, absolutely, this is exactly how I am. This is something that I do. But there were so many things that as I was reading, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been in such a rut with my system. I've been letting it do kind of the bare minimum, but I'm not leveling up my productivity. I'm not doing as much as I could be doing. Not in the sense of like doing more to do more, but I have certain goals that I've been wanting to work on that I just haven't felt that I had the time to get to. And I realized reading through the book that there were certain things in my system that were making it so that I wasn't able to find this time, if that makes sense. So just, if you are an experienced bullet journaler, I would definitely recommend reading this book. It can kind of shake you up and shake you out of your habits, which some habits are great and all, and some are the bad habits that we've let ourselves fall back into because we think we're being more productive because we have a bullet journal, but there's so many more things that we could be doing, and so many things that are on my to-do list, for example, that I'm like, I don't really need to be doing this, or I really don't need to be starting 15 projects. I should probably focus on like 5. It was eye-opening in that regard. If you are new to bullet journaling, I also would recommend reading it. However, I would recommend reading it probably after you go through the website and you do like the first, he's got like the intro to all of the moving parts of the bullet journal system. I would recommend watching that video and reading the article first and then dive into the book because there's a ton of information here. Even I started feeling overwhelmed after a while. I was taking notes, so as I was reading, I would underline and flag things with page flags, and then I sat down at one point and I took notes from basically the beginning up to about page 146, and I was finding that I had so many things that I wanted to do. All of the like thought exercises and the in practice sections that he has were so useful that I wanted to do all of them, and I was getting bogged down. So finally I had to decide to just stop taking notes for now, and I just read through the end of the book and took notes in the book and everything. But I'm going to sit down now that I've finished reading it. I'm going to sit down and go back through everything and pull out the things that are priorities, things that some of the exercises that I really want to work on right now, because it's true, like there's so much information in here, it can get pretty overwhelming. So number 3, form versus function. This is a huge debate in the bullet journal community, and it's not even, I don't know, is it a debate? But basically, there are a lot of us who will do certain types of extra things in our journals. For example, I do lettering, sometimes I do washi tape or stickers, sometimes I do watercolor, sometimes I don't do anything. And I have always taken it as, for me personally, I was always organized. And so one of the main draws for bullet journaling for me was to allow me to express my creative side on a daily basis. Now, if you are just in it for the organization, that is totally fine. Go for it. I mean, if you ever see pictures of Ryder's bullet journal, it is super duper minimal, and he has done so much. Like, there is nothing wrong inherently in being super minimal or super decorating, what's the word for that? You know, or in doing a lot of art in your bullet journal. There's nothing wrong with that. Ryder's point in the book, and the thing that I think is really, really important, is your bullet journals should be functional. So if the art helps you be more functional, if it motivates you to actually use your bullet journal and to get more stuff done, do it. If the art keeps you from doing stuff, or if you feel stressed out by the idea that you have to have art, don't do it. You need to find that balance between what is going to work for you and still be functional. At the end of the day, whatever you do in your bullet journal, minimalist or maximalist, it should be functional, because it's essentially and above all a tool. Number 4, I think this is something that a lot of us fall into the trap of, especially when we start, but everything in your bullet journal should have a purpose. Now, the purpose, as we talked about in the last number 3, the purpose can be that it motivates you. The art stuff might motivate you, but I'm talking more in terms of the collections that you have in your bullet journal, the kinds of things you track and that kind of stuff. When I first started, I think I watched all of Boho Berry's videos, I watched all of the bullet journal videos, I went trolling on Instagram trying to find stuff, and when I set up my first bullet journal, I did everything. I had quotes, I had doodles, I did gratitude and memories, my dailies had the time bar and the weather and like all of this kind of stuff, and I will honestly tell you, after about a week, I was so overwhelmed and stressed out that I started from scratch and I way simplified. So that is something that it takes time to figure out what's going to be useful and what isn't. Like, obviously, if you think something might be useful, you should definitely experiment with it. And then at the end, you can decide, yes, this was, I'm going to keep doing it, or no, it wasn't, I'm not going to keep doing it. Like, obviously, experimenting is really important, but it is important to also go back through the things that you have, and I'm guilty of not always doing this. You guys will know in my plan with me's, I tend to have the same spreads over and over. Now, I tend to have a fairly minimal number of spreads, because I have gone through this process and I figured out what works for me and what doesn't. But I will say that I could probably stand to reflect a little bit more on the things that I'm including in my spreads. And I try to a certain extent. You know, some months I have more things that I'm tracking, and then some months I say, hey, you know, I don't need all those things, I'm gonna cut it down. But if something is just in your journal to fill up pages, or because you thought you were gonna track it, there's nothing to say that you have to keep doing it. And one of the things that I really liked in this book was Ryder talking about, is your future self going to understand it? Is this collection, spread, whatever it is, going to bring you value still in the future? Is it going to have information that you can still make use of? Or is it what he calls a junk drawer collection? Is it just something that you're tracking to track? And I think that's a really good way of looking at it. There are certain things, for example, I track the K-dramas that I watch, and I track the books that I read. Now, is this information that is necessarily vital? That depends. For example, I like to track my K-dramas because I need to know where I am in the series, and I personally am not the kind of person that's going to say, oh, I stopped on episode 5, so that means I'm on episode 6. Like, I'm not going to remember that. So while I'm watching the K-dramas, this is a vital collection for me. It tells me where I am in the series. When I'm reading, you know, I have my library loans collection. In the future, do I really care that I had this book on hold? No. But in that moment, it was really important for me to know how much time I had left on these books. So there is a balancing act, I think, between, you know, the spreads that I have, they are still going to hold information in the future. Future me is maybe going to look back and say this isn't super vital information, but it was important for me at the time, and I think that that's okay. But then there are other things that for example, I'm going to redo in my collection bullet journal my to-be read list. I have pages and pages of books that I want to read that I know that I'm never going to get to. There are books that I've had on that list and that I just recopied because they were on the list. I'm probably not going to read a lot of them. So those are the kind of things that I know I need to go through and sort of really think about and pare down. If it's something that isn't useful, just don't feel obligated to do it. And that's a hard thing, but I'm gonna try. So the last thing, number 5, is the community. And I think that it's really great that, you know, Ryder gave us this system and shared the basics of it with the world, but then he has just kind of stepped back and let it take on this life of its own. And I think it's so cool, all of the resources that you can find out there. If you're looking to track something, you know, something's come up in your life and you need to start tracking something, or you need an idea for how to like put this on paper to just get it out of your head, there's probably someone out there who has already thought about it and has made something that might help you. And if not, then you can make something that can then help other people who come across this problem in the future. And I think that that is so, so great. And one of the things that I really like about this community that I think is not unique to us, but I think that is really cool, is that for the most part, everybody is super, super supportive and positive and just wants to help, wants to share for the sake of, hey, I put some time and effort into making this thing. I wanted to share it with you guys to see if it's gonna help somebody else. I think that that is such a great thing. So basically, I just love the idea that the community has played such a huge role in the bullet journal and its evolution, not its creation, but in its evolution. And I hope that something that stays with this community is this sense of kindness, being kind towards others, being supportive of others, and allowing for the diversity and saying, you know, you might do something differently than the way that I do it, but I can understand and respect that might be what works for you, even if it doesn't work for me. So I think that's something that's really cool about the community, and I just hope that we stay that way, basically. All right, so now I want to tell you guys, from all of the things that I read in the book, the 5 things that I am planning to change. Either I have changed, if you guys saw my October plan with me, you'll have seen some of these. So either the 5 things that I have changed or that I want to change in terms of my own system to kind of level up my own productivity and just my own practice. So, number 1, I'm trying a monthly log. And you guys will have seen in my October plan with me, I actually did set up a monthly log for October. I haven't had a monthly log. I actually don't think I've ever had a monthly log. I have done a calendar setup essentially since I started bullet journaling because my brain just kind of works that way. I need to see it in this like week layout in order to have any kind of concept of how much time I have and how much time things are going to take. However, my challenge for myself for October was to try the monthly log and see if maybe I can get my brain to adapt and work a different way. And one of the reasons why I did it also was to have a visual reminder that I'm trying to make some changes in my system to make it work smarter, not harder kind of thing. So I'm testing it out. I don't know if I will keep it in November or not. I will say that I've noticed I am using it more than I was using my calendar. I had gotten to the point where, because I have my CALENDEX and I had my weekly, I would do a very small monthly calendar just to kind of pinpoint the highlights, like, you know, my haircut's on this day and I have work on these days, but not necessarily the times or anything like that because my calendar was so small. And for a while that worked, that was fine. But I have noticed that since using this monthly log this month, I have color-coded. I've used my color code, which has been really helpful visually for me, to put in the times that I work because my schedule changes every day. I go into work every single day, but I don't always go in at the same time. And so I just quickly put in my color code, you know, on Mondays I go in from 9 to 5 and on Tuesdays it's from 2 to 4 or whatever. And so I can see at a glance when I'm in work on those days without having to look at my actual schedule. I've also used the color code for I have the holiday coming up at the end of October, so I have a color code. I've color coded in there. I've also started putting in things that actually happen that day, sort of after the fact. So what I've been doing is, if I've put in something that's happened after the fact, I tend to write it in cursive, just in a gel pen, just to sort of distinguish it. And then certain things I'll pencil in if I'm not sure, for example, if I'm going to do it. And at some point I hope to put in things that maybe don't fit in a color code, so not an appointment, but things that I know that are going to be on that day, but do it in block letters in a gel pen. So we'll see. So far it hasn't been the catastrophe that I think that I always thought it would be, So we'll see how it goes. I might keep it, I might change it, but at least for this month, I'm trying the monthly log. The second change, and that kind of goes with my monthly log, is I'm going back to daily. So I am keeping a one-page weekly. I'm going back to my old style where I had the days on the left side and then a task and upcoming week on the right side. And I am going back also to an ALISTAIR type task list. So I have work, social media, and personal are the three categories, just to help me kind of distinguish them, but I put everything in a running list rather than putting them in different sections on my spread. And so what that has allowed me to do is go back to dailies, and I'm still working on this. I'm not the best at rapid logging. Depending on what's going on, if I'm at home, I might add stuff in there, but I have this like idea in my head that my daily log are the tasks that I plan to get done that day. And reading the book, for Ryder, it's a catch-all. It's anything that comes up during the day, anything that, you know, oh hey, I want to remember to look up this thing, or oh, I saw this restaurant that I want to go to. He puts it all in his daily log, and then in the evening sorts it out into the different places that it needs to go. And I'm having a really hard time getting that particular usage of the daily log into my head. So that is my goal for this month. I really want to work on that. Like I said, it's not exactly going to plan. I'm still kind of treating it as the things that I want to get done. I need to figure out, I don't know, it's something that I want to work on, but I want to eventually get to a system where I use my daily as the catch-all and figure out where stuff goes from there and have it be a system that works, that doesn't feel overwhelming. Now, if I try this for a month or two and it's really just not working, then I will figure out something that does. But I want to give it a shot because I've noticed that I tend to have scrap papers that have little notes, or I have notes on my phone and all this, that, and the other. And I am writing stuff down because if I don't write it down, then it just is on my mind. I do write stuff down. It's just that I'm not writing it down on my daily. So it's a work in progress, but it's definitely something that I want to make a concerted effort to try and figure out, let's say. Figure it out. Number 3, I am bringing back my gratitude log. So this is something that I used to do, and actually I did gratitude logs before I even heard about bullet journaling because my best friend mentioned them like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And so I did it for a while, and then I would stop and then I would do it again. And so when I heard about it as part of bullet journaling, I was like, yeah, obviously that makes a lot of sense. And so I did a gratitude log for a long time. I stopped actually probably at the beginning of the year because I was doing my some lines a day. Now, I think that if I had incorporated gratitude into my some lines a day, I wouldn't be doing a gratitude log now. However, my some lines a day I have been using sort of to track in broad strokes what I've done that day in a couple of sentences. And so I find that I'm not doing gratitude in there, so I want to go back to doing gratitude in my journal. And it's one of those things that I kind of come in and out of, but I do really like it. And so one of the things that really resonated with me from the book was this line that Ryder says, find the music in the mundane, or find music in the mundane. And so I have actually labeled my gratitude log this time around with that quote rather than labeling it as my gratitude log, because that just really spoke to me. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to starting again. I actually set it up this morning and have done my first day, and we'll see how it goes. Number 4, I am rethinking my goals. So specifically how I put my goals on paper and how I go about achieving them. So I have been using 101 and 1001. It's a goal system where you basically come up with the 101 goals that you would like to get done in the 1001 days. And I have some videos on it if you guys are interested in checking it out, but essentially I take anything that's been on my task list that I haven't gotten to, which can include small things and big goals, and I kind of put them all into this, and I work towards them during the like 2.5 years that the challenge runs. So one of the things that I've realized lately is that there are a lot of goals on there that, because I started this, I think I started it in September of 2017 if I remember, it's already been a year. And there are things that are on my goal list that just are no longer relevant. There are projects that I no longer want to work on. There are things that I no longer need to do. And so for me, I think it's just too long of a time frame. So one of the things that I really enjoyed in the bullet journal method is the thought exercise of 2 lives. And I'm not going to go super in depth into it, but basically you imagine 2 different versions of your life and you go through and you see which one you would rather have and you pull out the goals from that. And doing that, I saw that I had certain goals, and there are certain goals that keep repeating, whereas other goals just kind of don't show up again. So that's one thing. I want to focus on those specific goals. The other thing that I really liked was this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise, where you think about your goals in terms of very short term to rather long term, and you prioritize and then you make collections about them. This was like the biggest thing. I am terrible. I'll write down a goal, but I won't necessarily make a collection to break down the steps of how to actually achieve that goal. And that is the biggest thing that I think I'm going to change. So one is going to be look at what are my short to long term goals, prioritize a few of them so that I don't have 20 trying to go on all at once, because I tend to just overload myself and I want to do too many things all at once and then nothing really gets done. And 3, I want to actually make collections and work on breaking down the steps so that I can actually attain these goals. Because a lot of times you look at it and you're like, okay, I know there's a ton of stuff that goes into this, but you don't actually take the time to break it down into its component parts to start tackling them. So I think I'm going to be rereading the sections on goal setting and goal collections and all of that kind of stuff, and project planning as well, multiple times to really try and get it into my brain and to really work on improving the way that I go about tackling my goals. So that is going to be a huge, huge change. And number 5 goes with that, just not only goals, but projects in general. I want to rethink how I actually plan them out. So in the book, Ryder takes you through planning a trip and goes through all of the different things that he would go through. And as I was reading it, I was like, oh my gosh, I have never thought to do it this way, because normally what I do is I say, okay, I have my travel spread. What's my transportation? Am I gonna fly? Am I gonna take a train? You know, where am I gonna stay? What do I need to pack? What do I need to do before I leave? What do I need to do when I get back? What am I gonna do while I'm there? And like, that's about it. But the way that he broke it down, where you basically you brainstorm everything all at once and then you start funneling it into dedicated pages that have to do with, you know, if you have multiple locations that you're going to go to, you have a page for each location and you break it down. What do I want to do? And then once you have all the things that you want to do, you start looking at like, what are the things I really want to do, and prioritize those. What are the things that are kind of lukewarm? So you cross it, like, just the way that he approaches it. Obviously, it's so methodical, and I always thought that I was fairly methodical about how I plan my trips, but I'm not. And I think that this applies to any sort of project whatsoever, and I really want to work on actually doing that, and not just I feel like either I do the brain dump section and I leave it, or I try and like directly go into organizing all of my thoughts and I inevitably miss steps and all that kind of stuff. So basically I want to figure out a way to take the brainstorming section and the structured section and, you know, bring those two together and then fill in all the bits in the middle that I seem to be missing. Another section, like this is another section that I know I'm going to reread multiple times. It's probably going to take a while for me to really get it down, but seeing how he laid out this trip planning just showed me all of the like holes I have in my system that could be, you know, not having this stuff on paper could be stressing me out without me even realizing it. So just honestly, just blew my mind a little bit. So whether you are a newbie bullet journaler or an experienced bullet journaler, I would recommend checking this book out. Whether or not you buy it, pre-order it, what have you, or if you get it from the library, you should check this book out, because there's so much information, and just, you know, I know there's a ton of books out there. There's a lot of people who swear by getting things done. You know, there's all sorts of different things, and it's just another perspective, and I have to say that this particular perspective really spoke to me. So maybe it will for you, maybe it won't, but it was just so interesting to read, and it was also just really fascinating to be given this look inside Ryder's mind and like just how he views the world and how he approaches life's obstacles. It was so fascinating and so interesting to read. So I'm going to try and wrap it up there. This is going to be a long video. You guys know me. It's going to be a long video. First, if you are in the United States, I believe that there is a pre-order going on where you can get 25% off. I'm going to drop the information down in the description box. I think it's until the book comes out on the 23rd. So the book comes out October 23rd. Mark your calendars. If you're in the US, you might be able to get this pre-order discount. Unfortunately, as far as I can tell, it does not apply to anybody in the rest of the world. Kind of sucks, but that's the way it goes. But that's what I've got for you guys. Honestly, I am just, my mind is so full of information and things that I want to try. I'm so excited for you guys to get your hands on this book too, because it is just, it's awesome. Like, it's awesome, basically. So whether or not you actually get your hands on the book, one thing that I think would be just so cool is if you felt like your life has been changed for the better by your bullet journal, and you haven't already, take a minute to send Ryder a message, for example on Instagram or even via email, or comment on the bullet journal website just to say thank you. I'm sure a lot of you have already done this and like that's amazing, but if you haven't, I know it can feel like, you know, one person saying thank you doesn't necessarily mean a lot when there are so many of us who use the system, but honestly, just, it would be so powerful to let Ryder know that there are so many of us who have been changed by the system, who have been helped by the system, and I think he would really appreciate hearing it. So if you guys haven't already, consider sending him a message to say thank you. I know I have, and I probably will again, because honestly, there's so many things that I'm doing with my life now that I don't think I would have done if I hadn't found bullet journaling, just because it's opened up so many possibilities that I didn't even think were an option. So anyway, my little sentimental rant is over. I hope you guys enjoy the book. If you guys get your hands on it, please let me know down in the comment section, what do you think? What are the things that you took away from it? What are the ways that you have decided you want to change your system? Just let me know your thoughts, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.